Hey everyone, Rob Vino here with your week number 2 college football power ratings report. We're going to try and get these up and available to you each and every week here on Sunday afternoon. Probably get to it a little bit earlier from here on out, but we'd like to get it out to you before the opening numbers are posted so you have a little bit of time to work through your handicap. For those of you who bet off of the openers, um, like a lot of us, then you want to have these numbers readily available, if for nothing else, to compare to your own, or at least to have a gauge for when the openers come up. I usually am, I'd consider myself a counter puncher where these lines are concerned. I like to see where the odds maker opens and then respond to that. But let's get right to it here as we're winding down week 1 college football. Purdue, as we speak, leads 21-17 second quarter against Marshall. We're going to start with Thursday, September 10th, game 301, 302. And I'll tell you, um, real quick before we get going here, I need to make a point about week 2 college football. This, in all of my years in this profession, you find that the most overreaction from bettors and maybe even odds makers alike occurs right after week number 1. All of a sudden, teams that look good have their power ratings bounced, maybe higher than they should. At least some teams do, and some have their power ratings downgraded more than they should. I think it's very important to keep a level head between week 1 and week 2. It's a week where I've found over the past 24 plus years that you can capitalize on a lot of situations just by not allowing yourself to get carried away with the emotion of week 1. You'll see that in some of these numbers. You know, when I do these numbers, and I've been going through them for the last couple of hours now, maybe 2-3 hours, downgrading, upgrading, and then setting power rating lines. Even I, after all this time in the business, wind up jumping at numbers as I see them come up as power ratings. Gives me a projected price on games, and I think, wow, how could that possibly be? And you have to remember, these numbers are kept for a reason, and nobody's as great as they look last week. For the most part, there are always a couple of teams that come from nowhere and surprise us, and for the most part, nobody's as bad as they look last week. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get to these numbers. If I have a thought or two on each game, I'll spit it out here real quick for you as I give you the power rating projected line. Bear with me here. Got myself a full bottle of water ready to roll here through these games. We're not going to get involved with in-depth analysis on these contests, just power rating numbers and a quick thought if I have one. If you want in-depth analysis, by all means, those of you who follow Sports Memo, find me there. We'll see when Andrew schedules me for this week. That schedule hasn't come up yet, but certainly we'll be discussing a lot of college football. I'll be on there with Andrew at least a couple of times this week. And also keep a lookout for the YouTube audios. I'm going to keep these coming and give you some of my thoughts during the week as I go through the card myself. But let's start with Thursday night football. Game 301, 302, Louisiana Tech at Western Kentucky. In this one, power ratings make the road team Louisiana Tech the 5-point favorite over Western Kentucky. Skip Holtz's bunch, Louisiana Tech -5. I'll try and go slow enough and repeat them twice. You guys can all write these down. Next game up is going to be Miami and Florida Atlantic. That game played on Friday, September 11th on the rotation card 303, 304. Miami of Florida, the Hurricanes in this one, power ratings show them to be 19 over Florida Atlantic. A good Florida Atlantic team this year, certainly quite the tussle with Tulsa. Overtime battle on Saturday, 47-44 final, won by Tulsa. But Miami of Florida, -19 on Friday night at Florida Atlantic. The other Friday night game, Utah State at Utah. Game number there is 305, 306. Power ratings show us Utah, the home favorite here, -14.5. Move to Saturday's card, September 12th, South Florida and Florida State. Starting at the top here, it's going to be game 307, 308, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time start. This one shows, power ratings show this one to be Florida State minus 30.5 over South Florida. Now working directly down the rotation card in order, Western Michigan at Georgia Southern. This one shows up as a pick where power ratings are concerned. And you may look at that and obviously shake your head. How can that be a pick? Georgia Southern, with their starting quarterback suspended, didn't look very good against West Virginia. Western Michigan kept it close with Michigan State. And like you, I did a double take on this one. But you have to remember once again that nobody is ever as bad as they looked the first time around. I'm sure Georgia Southern, probably with their backup quarterback again this week, his numbers were horrendous in week one. We'll see if he can improve week two, but they are at home in this contest. They were in Morgantown, a very difficult place to play the first time. Like I say, we won't get too deep into these games, but just that quick thought went through my head when I saw Pick'em. Perhaps Western Michigan might be undervalued there, but as I go through it even further, I'm not so sure. Let's wait and see where the odds makers place it. Will counterpunch from there. Buffalo's going to be at Penn State. Penn State, of course, upset by Temple in week one. Power ratings show Penn State to be minus 17.5 in this one. Penn State minus 17.5. Next up, Army's at Connecticut. The Yukon Huskies show up as a 4-point favorite according to power ratings here. Connecticut minus 4. East Carolina at Florida. Florida with more offense in 1 week under Jim McElvain than they had in 1 year under Will Muschamp. The Florida Gators here show up to be a minus 12-point favorite over East Carolina. East Carolina did struggle a bit in week one. Lost some key pieces off that offense from last year. Houston's going to play at Louisville this upcoming Saturday. In this one, power ratings show Louisville minus 12 over the Houston Cougars. Louisville minus 12. Just to keep your place here with the rotation board, we're at 319, 320 right now. Fresno State at Mississippi. Boy, the Ole Miss Rebels look good in piling up 76 points. Of course, the opposition wasn't quite up to par. Fresno State at Mississippi this week, intersectional matchup. Ole Miss minus 25 according to power ratings. Mississippi minus 25. Next up, Temple. They of the upset of over Penn State. They're going to travel to Cincinnati, a team that almost everybody likes to win the AAC this year with Gunnar Kiel at quarterback. Temple at Cincinnati. Cincinnati shows up here as a minus 10.5 point favorite. LSU, their game postponed due to inclement weather, so this will be their first game of the season. Going to travel to Starkville in an SEC West matchup, week 2, and already we have a huge divisional matchup in SEC play. LSU at Mississippi State. Power ratings show LSU to be a 2.5 point favorite. Miami of Ohio is going to travel to Wisconsin. MAC versus Big Ten. Home team Wisconsin here shows up 34 points better than Miami of Ohio. Wisconsin a 34-point favorite over Miami according to power ratings. K-State's going to play Texas San Antonio. Texas San Antonio, I think one of the surprise results of week number 1 is they hung right with Arizona for the most part. In Arizona, no less. Kansas State's going to travel to San Antonio this week, play the Roadrunners. Power ratings suggest Kansas State to be a 23-point favorite over Texas San Antonio. Kansas State minus 23. Marshall currently in action here. They're going to travel to Ohio U. Ohio U beat up on Idaho in week 1. No line on this game, obviously, because we have to wait till Marshall finishes to adjust the power rating. If that game were to be played right this very second, before, or maybe before 3 o'clock East, 12 o'clock Pacific, before Marshall took the field, the number would have been Marshall minus 12.5, but that's a would have been. We'll wait, and I'll certainly update all you guys with the Marshall Ohio U power ratings number either later tonight or tomorrow. Hawaii going to travel to Ohio State. Once again, Ohio State hasn't even played a game yet. They play tomorrow night against Virginia Tech, so there's no number here. If that game were to be played right now, if they were going to kick off at this time, Ohio State would be a 38-point favorite. Once again, I'll update you guys with those 2 games some point. Well, it would have to be some point tomorrow. Once the Ohio State game concludes, maybe we'll get them both out there. Wake Forest at Syracuse. Syracuse, according to Power Ratings, should be an 8-point favorite in this contest. Syracuse -8 over Wake Forest. Appalachian State traveling to Clemson. Clemson lost their top wide receiver, Mike Williams, early yesterday. First quarter, caught a touchdown pass, hit the goalpost, neck injury, forced him to leave the game. At game's end, for those who didn't see it, Mike Williams was in a neck brace, but up and walking around. I don't know that it'll be available here. Clemson, the home team against Appalachian State, shows up as a 24.5-point favorite according to Power Ratings. Once again, Clemson -24.5 over App State. Missouri plays Arkansas State. Mizzou not overly impressive offensively yesterday. They did break in freshman quarterback, true freshman Drew Lock, who is the future of that program. Gary Pinkel certainly took any excitement or any doubt that there might have been as to whether or not Locke would be redshirted this year. Took that away right away. Played Locke in that contest, looked good on a couple of throws. Missouri and Arkansas State on your rotation board is game 337, 338. Mizzou's going to travel down to Jonesboro to play Arkansas State. Power Ratings make them a 16-point favorite. Missouri -16 at Arkansas State. Eastern Michigan travels to Wyoming. Wyoming loses to FCS North Dakota over the weekend. Eastern Michigan traveling to Laramie to play the Cowboys. Wyoming shows up here as a -13-point favorite. We'll see if they can rebound and play a better game in week 2 than they did in week 1. Massachusetts is going to take the field for the first time this season. They are picked by the MAC media to win the MAC Eastern Division title this season. 10 starters back on offense, and of course one of my favorites. Those of you who have followed me for some time know that Mark Whipple, one of my favorite offensive play callers in all of college football. Loved him at Miami of Florida especially, and love him here at UMass, doing great things with the Massachusetts Minutemen. They're going to travel to Boulder to play Colorado. Colorado probably very happy to be back on the mainland. They took it on the chin at Hawaii. This game, Power Ratings say Colorado should be a 14.5-point favorite. Once again, Colorado -14.5 over Massachusetts. Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, we last saw them playing TCU. Pretty tough score-wise. I'm not so sure that game was as close as the final score indicated. I think that Trevon Boykin and TCU left a ton of points on the field in that contest. Regardless, Minnesota got the cover. They did it in typical Jerry Kill Minnesota fashion. Nothing flashy about it, but they got themselves a cover. They're going to play in Fort Collins at Colorado State. Power Ratings say Minnesota should open here as a -2-point favorite. Minnesota -2 over Colorado State. Next up, Oregon State's going to play at Michigan. A couple of new head coaches here. Gary Anderson, coming from the Big Ten and Wisconsin the last couple of years to coach at Oregon State. Michigan, of course, with Jim Harbaugh. Went to Utah last Thursday night, and Utah got the win and cover. We'll see how much Michigan improves between week 1 and week 2. The Power Ratings say Michigan should open up as a 10.5-point favorite over OSU in this game. Michigan -10.5 over Oregon State. Tulane at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech rattled off 69 points against Alcorn State. Triple option looked as good as ever in that contest. Of course, one more time, Alcorn doesn't provide much resistance. They will play Tulane this week, and Tulane shredded by Duke in week 1. Duke probably could have scored more than 37 points. For those of you who listened to the Sports Memo podcast on Friday, as I spoke with Andrew Lang, Andrew was of the opinion that, boy, Duke could have scored many more than 37. I join him in that sentiment. Duke was up and down the field in that game. Curtis Johnson, Tulane Green Wave at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, according to Power Ratings, should open up as a 29-point favorite. Georgia Tech -29 over Tulane. SEC East matchup here, Georgia at Vanderbilt. Nick Chubb and the Georgia Bulldogs. Heartbreaking one for anybody carrying a Georgia or over ticket in Georgia's opening day game. Obviously called off in the fourth quarter with 9 minutes 54 seconds left. That negated any tickets on Georgia or the over, which both were dead nuts winners. Unfortunately, you don't get paid for those when the game is called because of weather with 9:54 left in the game. So that is a tough break for anybody holding the right side on both counts, either one or both counts. Either way, if you had Georgia or over, that's a very tough ticket to hold. Tough ticket to not get paid for. You were definitely right in both of those instances. Georgia at Vandy. Georgia on the road, 26-point favorite according to Power Ratings. Georgia minus the 26. Boise State at BYU. We know BYU wins on the Hail Mary pass from midfield. Last play of the game against Nebraska. Steal themselves a victory. We know Taysom Hill is gone for the year with a fractured foot. Tough break for Brigham Young. We'll see how they respond. Boise State is not going to have the benefit of the blue turf here against BYU, and boy, they barely did survive the Washington Huskies. That was a heavily bet game toward the Boise State side. Washington came up a winner. Power Ratings did suggest there was value in the Washington Huskies in that game. So certainly the Power Ratings that I keep thought that maybe odds makers and the bettors were overestimating Boise. Here in this case, Boise's going to travel to Provo. Power Ratings make Boise State a 2-point favorite over BYU. Boise State minus 2 over BYU. Notre Dame and Virginia. Notre Dame, very impressive win over Texas. As impressive as they were, Charlie Strong's team was as unimpressive in that Saturday night contest. Notre Dame wins going away 38-3. They're going to travel to Charlottesville to play the Virginia Cavaliers. For Virginia, real quick, they come off playing UCLA, so certainly they're not going to be in awe of Notre Dame. And now instead of being on enemy turf, they will be at home. We'll see if Mike London's team can put up a good fight here. Power Ratings say Notre Dame should open as an 8-point favorite. I looked at it, guys, and I thought, there's no way that game's coming out minus 8. That game's going to come out double digits. It probably will. We'll see. It might leave a lot of value towards the Virginia side as a home dog. About an hour and a half, 2 hours from now, we'll know for sure where Notre Dame opens up in that game. But Power Ratings say they should be an 8-point favorite. In-state rivalry, Iowa Hawkeyes, Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa here, according to Power Ratings, should open as a 7-point favorite. Iowa 7 on the road in Ames against Iowa State. San Diego State at Cal. Cal only put up 73 opening game. Boy, that offense, very, very good, San Diego State. And Rocky Long's 3-3-5, unique in its own right and sometimes difficult to prepare for with only 1 week to do so. San Diego State's going to travel up north to California, take on the Golden Bears. Power Ratings say California should open as a 9-point favorite. Cal minus 9 over San Diego State. Memphis at Kansas. Kansas loses opening day to South Dakota State. High-scoring game, 41-38. Of course, we talked a lot about Kansas during the preseason on the Sports Memo radio show. I had the Big 12 preview with Andrew and indicated that Kansas was going to the up-tempo style, all-out air raid style offense. Put up 38, but giving up 41 to an FCS team. Not the way they wanted to start here. They're going to get Memphis in this contest. Memphis looked very good in their season opener. They've got something going on there with Justin Fuente as head coach. He's really built Memphis back up. Memphis in this one, according to Power Ratings, should open as a 14.5-point favorite. Memphis minus 14.5 on the road. Toledo had their game shortened. They had a 16-7 halftime lead before weather shut that one down. So with one half of football under their belt and probably not as impressive an offensive half as people would have expected out of the Toledo Rockets, they were, popular choice to win the MAC West and perhaps the MAC overall, the MAC championship this season. They're going to play Arkansas. Boy, they were impressive. That big offensive line got the running game going, and Brandon Allen with the play action passes for the most part was very accurate. He did miss a couple. We had a winning play there on the over in that contest. Really never in doubt. Game went over the total in the third quarter in large part due to Arkansas's proficiency on the offensive side. Said it once on the air, retweeted same sentiment yesterday. I'll say it again. Dan Enos ex-head coach at Central Michigan, is as good a fit for an offensive coordinator at Arkansas as anybody could have been. Dan Enos, you saw his play calling yesterday, right on the money in almost all instances. I know that Arkansas certainly overwhelmed and overmatched Texas El Paso personnel-wise, but I love the way Dan Enos called plays yesterday, and I think that if they keep that up, they can be a handful for the SEC. Of course, they're already a bandwagon team between them and Tennessee. I don't think there's a person across America who follows college football that isn't on those two bandwagons. Neither team gave anybody a reason to jump off on Saturday. In this contest, Arkansas will be home against the Rockets of Toledo. Arkansas will be a little harder pushed in this game because Toledo has far more offensive weapons than just one Aaron Jones like Texas El Paso did. Point spread in this contest, according to power ratings, Arkansas minus 22. We'll see where it opens, but power ratings say it should open Arkansas minus 22. Middle Tennessee State at Alabama. Crimson Tide off the much anticipated game against Wisconsin. They performed as expected, got the cover. Here against Middle Tennessee at home, Alabama shows up as a 36-point favorite according to power ratings. Alabama minus 36. San Jose State at Air Force. Both of these teams looked good in week one. Air Force at home opens up, according to power ratings, as the 9-point favorite in this game. Air Force minus 9 over San Jose State. Pittsburgh. Boy, what could be a very big loss if James Conner can't play for them. We'll get more into the injury situations as the week goes on, but they lost James Conner in that game on Saturday. He did not return. We'll see what his outlook is as we move on through the week. They're going to go to Akron. Boy, Terry Bowden's team looked miserable. 20-star play for us on Saturday with the Oklahoma-Akron game over the total of 57. Oklahoma certainly did their part with 41. Trevor Knight probably blew another touchdown. Should have had 48, really. Or Oklahoma first and goal on the 7-yard line. And Trevor Knight, at the end of the game with about 4 minutes left, gets picked off by Akron, who had not stopped Oklahoma, for the better part of 34, 35 minutes. Once Oklahoma got rolling, they really got rolling against this Akron defense. Terry Bowden's offense just absolutely abysmal. Kyle Pohl at quarterback, no improvement there. We'll see if they can do something at home, though, against a lesser opponent, Pittsburgh at Akron in this contest. Pittsburgh opens up, according to power ratings, as a 12-point favorite. Pittsburgh minus 12 over Akron. Bowling Green and their high-flying offense will travel to Maryland. Maryland, the home team here, 15.5-point favorites. That's what the power ratings suggest here. Maryland minus 15.5 at home against Bowling Green. Arizona, no Scooby Wright for a few weeks now. He had the knee surgery. He had the surgery. He will be back. I think I saw a month or 5 weeks. We'll get a more exact time frame on Scooby Wright, but it leaves a big hole in the middle of the Arizona defense. Arizona going to travel to Nevada to play the Wolfpack. Power ratings say Arizona should open as an 11-point favorite. Kentucky at South Carolina, another SEC East battle, and one that, could go a ways in saying something here. Kentucky's an improved team. Boy, they let UL Lafayette right back in the game yesterday. Last night they had a big lead. Next thing you knew, Lafayette was back in it, tied up at 33. Kentucky goes on to win 40-33. Looked good offensively behind Patrick Towles. Need to do a little something about that defense still, though. We'll see what Mark Stoops comes up with. But this is a tough travel spot. Going to go on the road against an improved South Carolina defense. They showed that week one against North Carolina. While they may not have a lot of offense, the defense is far more rugged than it was last year. In this SEC East matchup, power ratings say South Carolina should open up as an 8.5-point favorite. North Texas is going to play their first game of the season. Little city rivalry almost here as Denton meets Dallas. North Texas at SMU. SMU hung around for a little bit against Baylor, and then Baylor hit the gas pedal and took off. They win 56-21. But Chad Morris's team did look a little bit better here with only one game under their belt in this new system. Both systems, each side of the ball features a new system. I know that back in the spring, Chad Morris wanted SMU to really at practice rattle off a lot of plays. He wanted, I think, 29 plays in 15 minutes or something like that, or 29 plays in 10 minutes, whatever the case may be. SMU wasn't capable of going that fast in the spring. They looked a little bit better here on opening day. They're going to be home to North Texas. This game will be played in Dallas on SMU's home field. Power ratings say SMU should be a 1.5-point favorite. Ball State at Texas A&M. A&M off the big victory on Saturday night against Arizona State. Power ratings say A&M 28 over Ball State. Texas A&M at home minus 28 against Ball State. Texas El Paso at Texas Tech. El Paso, boy, could you see two more different philosophies offensively in 2 weeks? They just face Arkansas, a team that wants to steamroll you. Now they're going to play Texas Tech, a team that wants to finesse you with 5 wides at some, or 4 wides. Interesting matchup for El Paso. I'm sure they're happy that they're out of Fayetteville and into Lubbock. In this one, power ratings say Texas Tech should open as a 16-point favorite. Texas Tech minus 16. Washington State, what an embarrassment for Mike Leach's club in week 1 as they lose to an FCS opponent. They're going to travel all the way across country to play Rutgers. In this game, power ratings say that Rutgers should open as a 5-point favorite. Rutgers with problems of their own. Suspensions turned into dismissals on Saturday, and right now, Rutgers without 3 defensive backs who were scheduled to be starters this season. They did come through. Chris Loviano and their top wide receiver, Carew, hooked up on 3 touchdowns in the second half. Remember, there were some suspensions for those guys for the first half of Saturday's game. They came back in the second half against Norfolk and absolutely tore it up. Dante Carew, 3 TD catches, and like I say, Chris Loviano showed he should be the starting quarterback for this team. So Rutgers now has to move on. A lot of extenuating circumstances there. Still an ongoing one with head coach Kyle Flood. Nonetheless, Washington State's situation might be even worse with the fact that they lost that opening week game. But remember what I said to start this podcast. There's just no way anybody's as bad as they look in week 1 or as good as they look in week 1. We always see major steps taken in week 2 and sometimes huge change of events in week number 2 of the college football season. In this one, like I said, Rutgers, according to power ratings, should be a 5-point favorite in what may be the best game of week 2. Oklahoma, the new air raid offense with Lincoln Riley, with the new quarterback from Texas Tech here, Mayfield. They looked pretty good. They got off to a slow start, but boy, as I said earlier, they really started to rattle off yardage and points, scored 5 touchdowns, I think, in 6 possessions in the middle 2 quarters. Oklahoma's going to travel. We're going to see just how good they are. Baker Mayfield in that offense against Tennessee. Joshua Dobbs in his offense. They were unstoppable against Bowling Green. Bowling Green doesn't put up anywhere near the resistance that the Oklahoma Sooners defense does. But boy, Tennessee, like I said earlier, they and Arkansas, all of the hype, all of the hoopla around those teams heading into week 1 was certainly lived up to in week 1. But this is a big game. We'll see which one of these 2 teams survives it. Oklahoma at Tennessee. Power ratings say Oklahoma should walk into Knoxville and open as the 3-point favorite. Oklahoma minus 3 over Tennessee. Rice at Texas. Texas and Charlie Strong at home here open as a 12-point favorite according to power ratings. Texas minus 12 over Rice. Georgia State at New Mexico State. Georgia State, they allow Charlotte to enter FBS football and win their very first game, 23-20. Georgia State loses to Charlotte. Now they have to travel to New Mexico State. New Mexico State, pretty different opponents here. You play Florida and give up 51 points. Now you get to go home and play Georgia State. In this one, power ratings say New Mexico State should open the 6-point favorite. New Mexico State minus 6 over Georgia State. South Alabama at Nebraska. Can Nebraska get over that loss against BYU on Saturday? That'll be the question. Nebraska should open here minus 26 points. Power ratings tell us Nebraska minus 26 over South Alabama. I said Oklahoma, Tennessee might be the best game of the week this upcoming week. If it's not, then Oregon, Michigan State will be. This one may be even more anticipated as Vernon Adams brings the Oregon Ducks offense into East Lansing. Last year, Michigan State held the lead at halftime and then got their doors blown in the second half by Marcus Mariota and company. The Ducks will travel to play Michigan State. Power ratings in this contest say Oregon should open up a 1.5 point favorite. Oregon minus 1.5 over Michigan State. FIU, Florida International, big upset win over Central Florida in their first game. Going to play Indiana, who really struggled to get by Southern Illinois, an FCS, a pretty good FCS team. Indiana survived. Florida International at Indiana. Power ratings say Indiana should open a 7-point favorite. Indiana minus 7. Idaho at USC, another walkthrough here for USC. They don't really need to do much game prep for this one. Power ratings say they should open a 46-point favorite. USC minus 46, considering what they did to Arkansas State in week 1. And Arkansas State's a much better team than Idaho. This one should probably be over by halftime. USC minus 46, according to power ratings, over Idaho. Tulsa at New Mexico. Philip Montgomery and that new Baylor-style offense hit Tulsa. Tulsa comes up with a big win over Florida Atlantic, an absolute shootout. Expect those this year from Tulsa. I think we knew that coming into Saturday. That total jumped from 60 to 69 at one point during the week, and boy, there couldn't have been a more correct line move than that one, as that game wound up totaling 91 points. Here, Tulsa will play Bob Davies' New Mexico team in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The host should open as a 4-point favorite over Tulsa. New Mexico minus 4. Central Florida traveling all the way to the west coast to Palo Alto to play Stanford. Both teams off disappointing week 1 losses. Central Florida, a lot of talent has left this Central Florida program last couple of years. Certainly that showed up against FIU opening day. Stanford, not the same team either this year from what we saw against Northwestern, the 16-6 loss. But this game, both teams obviously looking to rebound. Stanford should open as a 19-point favorite. Power ratings once again show Stanford minus 19 over Central Florida. And our last game on the FBS card, UCLA at UNLV. UNLV played Northern Illinois much closer than just about anybody thought, but power ratings did suggest there was a lot of overvaluing going on toward the Northern Illinois side in that game. Power ratings picked up a winner, suggesting UNLV to be a pretty good play in that contest. Here, UCLA once again traveling to Las Vegas to play UNLV. UCLA should open here about a minus 29.5 point favorite. UCLA minus 29.5. So there you have it. The opener should be with us, boy, in about an hour from now. We should be looking at openers. Be sure to take these power ratings numbers, compare them. Any feedback, much appreciated. Once again, we'll be back tomorrow with an MLB card update and some other various football updates. Once again, this is Rob Vino saying thanks for listening and good luck.